What is up, everybody? Welcome into I'll Say This with Chris Castellani. I am your host, Chris Castellani. This is the show I've probably been looking forward to the most since I started doing I'll Say This. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of today's program, we're officially on Apple Podcasts and we are officially on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, I will link to those links on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can get all the fixings, whatever podcasting platform you prefer to listen on, that's all available. So the audio-only version of this podcast is now officially up and running. Thank you to the people at Barstool. Thank you so much. Thank producer Matt. If you're in the comments right now, just write thank you, producer Matt, for helping get this off the ground. So just in time for baseball, just in time for opening day. All episodes, by the way. So if you want to recap any of the first 7 episodes, you can go ahead and listen to those on whatever podcasting platform you prefer. Now that that's out of the way, today is Tigers Day. This show is going to be uploaded on opening day, and that is how we're going to spend this entire show today. As I said a few days ago, if you're not a big baseball person, you may not be interested in this, but I'd recommend listening anyway, or watching on YouTube if you are, because you might learn a thing or two. You might even get a little bit excited. Before we get into the full-on season preview, a huge piece of news broke regarding the Detroit Tigers, and this was, I put it in my blog, I said it in my video. When I read this news, and it came from the official Tigers account, but I did about 17 double takes because I was just shocked. On Monday, the Monday of the national championship game, great game, by the way, between North Carolina and Kansas. Congratulations to Bill Self in Kansas. Bill Self winning his second championship, but that's beside the point. It's Tigers Day, damn it. The Tigers traded Isaac Paredes to the Tampa Bay Rays in a draft pick. You can trade draft picks now. I think that's part of the new CBA. For Austin Meadows, outfielder, previously for the Rays. Austin Meadows, a career OPS well above 800. He was an all-star in 2019. We're talking about a guy who has played in the World Series, who's been a part of deep postseason runs in the past. Very experienced player, but he's only, as of now, 26 years old. He's going to be 27 here pretty soon. 3 more years of team control. This was shocking news, but shockingly pleasant news. What I'm about to say, I mean as a compliment. Al Avila lied. Al Avila said at the end of last season, we're not big on trading prospects. We like the guys we have in our system, blah, blah, blah. Well, he lied, and maybe that was the intention, but I really think that the Riley Green injury shook them quite a bit. And Avila was open about it. Riley Green was going to make the team, and Riley Green was going to start in the outfield for this team, and they believed that he was going to contribute right away and play a key piece and be a big part of this baseball team. And guess what? I still think he can be. This trade, just initial reaction, I'm very positive about it. There is one thing that has me a little nervous, and it's who they traded with. Meadows comes from the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, this is the Rays' way. The Rays sell high. It's what they do. They sold high on Tommy Pham. They sold high on Blake Snell, and now they're selling high on Austin Meadows. Austin Meadows did not have a great spring, and there is a part of me, given how savvy the Rays are as an organization, that no organization in sports does more with less, that makes me wonder, given the fact that all we did was give up Isaac Paredes for him, it makes me wonder if they saw something in Meadows that scared them a little bit, and that's why they got rid of him. And there seems to be a bit of a misconception, and even AJ addressed it after the trade happened, that the Tigers gave away nothing for Austin Meadows. That's not the case. I believe Isaac Paredes will start a playoff game for the Tampa Bay Rays one day. I think he's going to be a good major league player because he will fit well into the Rays system. He'll be a platoon guy for them. I think he'll give them some meaningful games. He'll hit a little bit. They might even fix things with him. I do think that there was a psychological element to his last year or so in Detroit. And it reminds me a little bit of Jeimer Candelario when he was in Chicago. Ironic, because those two ended up being part of the same trade back in 2017, where I think that the Tigers believe that Paredes' bat at some point would be good enough to be on a major league roster, but he turned out to be a little bit positionless. He wasn't going to be the third baseman of the future. That's Jeimer. Jeimer's here. He wasn't going to play shortstop. The outfield is now officially crowded. I just don't think there was ever really a place for him, and when there's not, that's a guy that you can trade for somebody like an Austin Meadows. The outlook regarding how I viewed this team and how I viewed this season changed when Meadows was acquired. I was very, very surprised. I was very happy. This guy can play, and this guy can hit. This guy hit 27 home runs, I believe, a year ago. He had 106 RBI, I believe. This is a caliber of player who can bat cleanup for a playoff team. I like to believe, and I know this didn't happen, I like to believe that AJ stormed into Avila's office and said, get me an outfielder, after finding out that Riley Green was injured. And I think what was so surprising about this news is that it just didn't feel like a move that Al Avila was really capable of making. And if not Al Avila, it didn't feel like a move that Chris Ilitch was really capable of making. I don't think that morale is an issue in an AJ Hinch clubhouse. This is a guy, he's so even keel. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. But I think that as of several weeks ago, this team felt really good about their roster and where they stood, and the outfield, the infield, the pitching staff. I think they were very confident that they could field a really competitive team. And I think the Riley Green injury, they were broken up about it. I mean, I think they believed this guy was going to come up right away and be a key part of this baseball team and help them succeed. And he gets injured 6 to 8 weeks. And you just felt like, well, here we go. Here's 6 to 8 weeks of Victor Reyes attempting to play the outfield and attempting to hit with this team. It felt like a move that they'd made so many times. I mean, how many injuries has this team had over the last several years where they just didn't address it? Screw it. Dawel Lugo's going to play short. I know the guy can't play the outfield, but who cares? Kristen Stewart's going to play left. This is a move that felt like something out of the Dave Dombrowski era, where it was, hey, you know what? I think we have a good team. Oh, we caught a bad break. Well, let's make a good team a much better team. And that's exactly what they did by adding Austin Meadows. This is very exciting news. Now, it does beg the question, what happens when Riley Green comes back? The outfield will become a little bit crowded. There will be what some people are saying an odd man out, whether it's Robbie Grossman. I would guess it would be Akil Baddoo, who's going to be on this team all year. I know there's some people concerned about that. Who's going to get sent down? Nobody's going to get sent down. They'll have a fourth outfielder in the dugout. It'll create platoon situations. AJ is going to play the matchups. AJ is smart enough. He'll go with the hot hand if necessary. A lot of people I saw on social media seem to believe that Robbie Grossman would likely be the odd man out, kind of the platoon guy. And that's possible if Robbie Grossman reverts back to the caliber of player he was prior to the 2020 COVID year, and especially prior to last year where he had a career best season. But I think that one thing this trade signals is that the Tigers as a whole are still not completely confident that Akil Baddoo can be a 140 game a year outfielder who can lead off against righties and lefties. And there seems to be a misconception on the internet. Fuzzy, who's a great content creator on YouTube, big Cleveland fan, said that I just don't like Baddoo. No, I love Baddoo. But I think that this is one of those instances, and this is a bit hypocritical coming from the most emotional person alive. I think it's one of those instances in which emotion is kind of getting in the way of logic here. I really like Akil Baddoo, and I think Akil Baddoo is going to emerge one day as an everyday outfielder. But Akil Baddoo has played like 50 really good games at the major league level. He's still remarkably unproven, and he had a good spring, but he did have that stint in the spring where he kind of wasn't hitting. I think that AJ is just going to play the matchups. There is no such thing, and we'll talk about it with the pitching here in a little bit, there is no such thing as too much depth. If the biggest problem this outfield has is that there's too many good outfielders, dude, you done good. I believe that's the situation the Tigers find themselves in right now. So nothing but positives about that deal. Now, let's move on to the outlook of the team. And I'm going to make my predictions about where they're going to finish. I'm going to talk about every piece of this team. We're going to break this whole thing down. And look, I have had high expectations all offseason. And that's what you do as a fan when you look forward to something. You think about best case scenario. What if they are this? What if they do stay healthy? What if this guy emerges? It's very similar to like being excited for a movie. You see a great trailer and you love the cast, you love the director, and you think, oh, this is going to be amazing. But by the time the movie comes out, you can't just blindly say, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. You do have to be objective and look at things from that viewpoint. There are holes in this baseball team, and there are things about this baseball team that have me really concerned. I'm going to start with what I believe is the least concerning thing about this baseball team, and that's the starting pitching. I have some issues with the bullpen. I have some issues potentially with the lineup, but I believe, and I've said it, I've been very consistent with this team will win games with their starting pitching. I think he may be a little bit inconsistent at points, but I really like the Eduardo Rodriguez signing a lot. I think this guy's going to be a horse. I think that him going from the AL East to the AL Central is going to pay off. I think him going from Boston to Detroit, where he's got Chris Fetter under his tutelage for a full year. I think this guy is going to be really, really good for this team if he stays healthy. Strikeout numbers are good. He had horrible luck last year. This team, one big thing that it can't be overstated, this team is substantially better up the middle and substantially better just as a defensive infield than they were a season ago. I mean, defensively, this infield a year ago at this time, you had Jamer, Goodrum, and Willie Castro at second, and then Miggy and/or Scope playing first. Well, now you got Jamer, you got Javi Baez, you got Scope, and you got Spencer Torkelson, who's a far, far better athlete at first base than Miguel Cabrera is. And behind the plate, you have one of the best game callers and pitch framers in the sport of baseball in Tucker Barnhart. This pitching staff will be good. I believe that even at their worst, this will be a baseball team with 2 to 4 starting pitchers that on any given night are capable of shutting down any lineup in baseball. That is very, very exciting, and that's what the entire rebuild has really been predicated on, has been starting pitching. I think Erod's going to have a solid year. I could be a year off here with this guy, because I feel like it's been 3 years in a row now where we've sang this guy's praises, and he's never been awful necessarily, but we keep waiting for the big emergence. I think this is finally the year where Tarik Skubal emerges, and I think by the end of this season, Tarik Skubal will be this team's ace, and he'll be, pending health, obviously, this team's number one starter going into 2023. I love what I've seen out of him in the spring, because watching him last year, the issues that plagued him, got behind in too many counts, struggled a little bit with fastball command, and gave up way, way too many home runs. Those are all correctable issues. Those are all things that you can work on. The thing you cannot fix is stuff, and this guy's stuff is insane. And watching him in spring, fastball command was better. He was utilizing everything. The slider, the changeup. It seems like he's got the curveball going a little bit. Facing some tough lineups. I mean, faced the Blue Jays a few times. I believe he faced the Phillies at one point and looked really, really good. I think that he is poised for a breakout season. This is a guy who at some point in his career is going to strike out 250 batters in a season. That's how good his stuff is. Casey Mize, I do still have a few concerns. He's got to find the splitter, and if he does, and that means if he finds a splitter, he'll miss more bats with it. That's great. It does, at points, feel like he's overthinking it or just laboring on the mound. He did not have a good outing his last time out against the Phillies. I still do worry about the mechanics. Not so much the fluidity of the mechanics, just, putting a lot of strain on that arm. But I think that his floor is pretty high. Like, I think that at worst, the Mize we got last year is the Mize we're going to get this year. He's going to get a lot of ground ball outs. I like the fact that he has learned to pitch. I mean, I think that's why he went number one overall, is that he's not just some flamethrower with no command. I mean, this is a guy who can throw all of his pitches for strikes. There will be a start, I feel like, where he's going to find it, and he's going to have a consistent run, and I really look forward to that. I don't know if he'll ever be that number one ace Cy Young caliber pitcher, but Casey Mize is going to be a rock-solid Major League pitcher for years, and that pick will be worth it, and I think he's going to be good this season. So you have those three. And then you have Michael Pineda, who will be starting the year off the roster, not on the IL, but just he's working his way back. There was a visa issue. It was a lot of weird nonsense, but he will not be starting the year on the Major League roster, but he'll be here soon, meaning that the last two pieces of this rotation will be Matt Manning and Tyler Alexander. Now, if you're looking for a hot take in this video, here's the take. Matt Manning looked a lot better in his final outing in spring. Mechanics are cleaner, and I believe his ceiling is still incredibly high. I think he's going to be a very good Major League pitcher at some point. Matt Manning, in his last start, was substantially better than he had been throughout the spring, and the mechanics are better. We know that the stuff is good. The breaking balls are sharper than they were a season ago. I really think he can have a wipeout curveball. He just needs to develop a little bit more confidence in it. He's going to be a very good pitcher at some point in the future. I am still unimpressed. I know this is a conscious decision by Fetter and Hinch to just make sure that the mechanics are right, but I am still unimpressed by how unexplosive his stuff looks. Now, look, I would rather a guy get outs. You want a guy to get outs, and that's fine. His last time in spring training, that's what he did. He got outs. Now, he was peaking at 93, 94. We saw a lot of 91, 92 mile per hour fastballs. But hey, that's fine. That's a nitpick. We can deal with that. As long as you're getting guys out, that's what matters. But often in spring, he was not getting guys out. You know who is? And you know who was getting guys out in the second half last year? Was Tyler Alexander. And when Michael Pineda comes back, depending on how these guys perform the first 2 weeks of the season or however long it is until Pineda comes back, I'm sure Alexander's going to get 2 or 3 starts in, as will Manning. It wouldn't shock me if the Tigers either sent Manning down or moved him to the pen for a short time. Because I believe in the long run, Matt Manning will be a better option than Tyler Alexander. He's as an athlete, as a specimen, he's way more impressive. I think his stuff is probably better. The ceiling is way higher. But last year, I would have said, hey, throw those guys out there. Put them into the fire, ease them into it. Because last year, the keywords were growth, progression, development. This year, it's about winning ball games. And yeah, you know what? I think Matt Manning is going to be excellent at some point in his career. I'm not down on him. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm saying that right now, we're no longer tanking. It's no longer about getting reps in for guys. It's about getting the 5 best pitchers in your rotation who can get outs. And I know he's got this weird delivery, and I know he had like a 6 ERA when he was in AAA, but for some reason, every single time I see Tyler Alexander pitch, he just gets guys out. And I think those discussions at some point will be had. Now, if in his first start, Alexander's given up 6 runs over 3 innings, then it's kaput. But I think that if Alexander pitches the way he did in spring and pitches the way he did in the second part of last season, maybe he fills that 5th spot in the rotation instead of Manning. And you let Manning kind of figure things out in the pen for a little bit. Sending him down, I wouldn't really be crazy about that. But this team's going to need some pitching depth, and maybe you give him some innings out of the pen. It's just a thought. Watch now. Matt Manning will strike out 10 over 6 innings in his first start, and he'll look like a fool. And I'm not saying one is a better option right now. I'm saying it's possible that one could be a better option. And if you would have told me 2 years ago that would be even a thing, I would have thought you were nuts. And it just goes to show what a good job the Tigers have done with Tyler Alexander, and what a good job they've done with Matt Manning. I mean, this guy I think could easily step onto a major league mound every time out and just try to pump 97 down people's faces. But he's tried to develop as a pitcher and not just a thrower. And while it creates a frustrating conundrum, in the long run, it will pay off for Matt Manning. So that's how I feel about the starting pitching. I'm going to end, let's see, should I end with the bullpen or should I end offensive? Let's keep going with the pitching, and let's go to the bullpen. I wrote a blog about this, and I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said in this blog because I thought it was fair and consistent and relatively well-written for a college dropout. But 3 weeks ago, I was very adamant that this bullpen was going to be good. Soto, Cisnero, Fulmer, Funkhauser, Alex Lang. You got Briefcase Joe in there as well, and you add Andrew Chafin. That's a pretty good back end of the pen. And this organization for, oh my God, my entire lifetime has done an abysmal job of building bullpens. They have lost World Series because of it. They have lost playoff series because of it. This is not an instance in which I blame Avila or the organization. This is an instance of bad luck. This team will come into the season with Andrew Chafin and Kyle Funkhauser on the injured list. Andrew Chafin, I don't think will be out for very long. That's a groin issue, which could be lingering, but he's a reliever. I think he'll be okay. I'm not. That's the least concerning of these injuries. Kyle Funkhauser's been out for a minute. Did not pitch in the spring. Will be available probably around May, and they're going to need him. His stuff is very good, and he had some really poor outings a season ago, but I think there's a spot for him as a relief pitcher on this team. They're going to need him. A.J. Hinch said he was concerned about Cisnero. A.J. Hinch rarely uses the word concerned. I mean, when everyone thinks the sky is falling down, A.J. Hinch is usually the first guy to be like, all right, let's cool it. The next day, put on the 60-day injured list. This is going to be a long-term thing. This could be the kind of thing where he might not pitch at all this year. I hope he does, and I hope he comes back effective, but right now, 60-day IL, that's the point where you start to look ahead and think, okay, how do we find replacements? The guys who are healthy, Gregory Soto. Soto will be Soto. He's going to be wild. He's going to be effective. He'll drive you nuts, but more often than not, he'll get the job done. The organization's very high on him. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's going to improve on the season he had, technically an all-star season from a year ago. I like Alex Lang quite a bit. He was very good in the latter part of last season, but he did not look very good in the spring. Strike throwing is a bit of an issue. Stuff is electric. They're going to need him to really step up because he has the stuff to be a late inning reliever, and they're going to have to throw him into the fire right away, and that's difficult after what was a very shaky spring on his part. Michael Fulmer pitched very good baseball for this team a year ago, and this is where there's that gray area, and it's why spring training, I almost wonder if I should stop watching so much spring training, because to me, when I watch Michael Fulmer pitch in spring, I think there's clearly something wrong. Slider was much sharper his last time out, but his fastball's peaking at like 93, 94. Last year, I think he hit 100 at one point, and it could just be, and AJ's talked about it, it could just be a veteran, a pitcher who knows his body, who's just trying to ease his way into it. But when you have a guy who's had a long list of injury history, you do get concerned when his velocity dips 3-4 miles per hour. And Michael Fulmer is a power pitcher. This is not Tyler Alexander or Andrew Chafin. They need him to be hitting 95, 96 if they want him to get outs in meaningful outs late in games. I can't believe I'm saying this, and it's taken me days to wrap my head around it, but Joe Jimenez has been pretty good in the spring. And you have always felt, and that's why he's driven me nuts over the last several years, you've always felt like there's a very good relief pitcher somewhere in Joe Jimenez. I just thought he was done. Like, he looked toast. It was bizarre that early last season and in the COVID year, he looked like a pitcher who was like at the end of his career, like a late 30s guy just trying to find a spot on a major league team, or like that's how bad he looked. And while I don't think his stuff will ever be as explosive as many people expected it would be, he was better in the latter half of last year. Seems like he slimmed down a little bit. He's in good shape, right now. And I root for him. I mean, I've been, he's driven me nuts, and I've been critical, and I think I've been fairly critical. I mean, he was bad for a long period of time. They're going to need him now. There are guys who have made the major league roster for this team that should not have made the major league roster. They simply made it there out of necessity. And guess what? If I was Avila or Illich or Hinch, I would have run it back with this same bullpen that they had. But you can't plan around bad luck. All you can do is create depth. And this team has had pitching depth. They just lost it. I don't care how deep your staff is. If you lose 4 relievers before opening day, or 3 relievers, and then you have another one who might be injured or you're kind of concerned about, that's just bad luck. Now, the pitching gods just hate the Tigers bullpen. And this will be a key issue all year. I think that for the short term, much like they did in the latter part of last season when, Funk went down, I believe, a little bit, Cisnero went down, and Fulmer was on the injured list for a while there. I do think that there will be a period early in the season in which they're able to duct tape and super glue this bullpen together. Last year we saw it. Last year there would be these instances in which they were getting these weirdly meaningful innings out of Hutchinson and Foley and Lang before Lang really turned a corner. In the early part of the season, it's possible that they could weather the storm a little bit. But the deeper it goes, they're going to need their horses back. And not only are they going to need them back, they're going to need them to be effective. This is the biggest area of concern on this baseball team. And then you have the offense, the lineup, the big boppers. I have some mixed feelings about this lineup. Right off the bat, substantially improved. I know so many people were down about the Baez signing, and he's going to drive me nuts too. He's going to strike out, swing at pitches in the dirt. He'll have a month where he puts up a 400 OPS, and then he'll go nuts for a month. He's a streaky player. I get that, and that is one issue that I have with this lineup. It's full of a lot of streaky players. Miggy nowadays is very streaky. Jonathan Scope is very streaky. Javier Baez is very streaky. I like Jamer. Jamer's probably the most consistent, him and Grossman, but he's, they can be streaky sometimes. Akil Baddoo can be very streaky. And so I worry about the consistency with this lineup, but it is, way better than a year ago. But, Dan Hasty, who does such a great job with the Whitecaps, posted what the lineup was on opening day 2 years ago. It's night and day. They have transformed this lineup compared to where they were several years back. And you got Spencer Torkelson in that lineup, who's a rookie, who I think is going to be good. And at some point, you're going to have Riley Green near the bottom of that lineup, adding depth to that lineup, and he's going to be very, very good. I would be stunned if by the end of the year, Green and Torkelson are batting 7th and 8th. I think they're going to work their way up through the lineup, whether it be because of their own performance or just other people just not carrying their weight. I think they're going to move up at some point, and if they do, I think that's a good thing for the Tigers because it means these guys are the real deal. I look at this lineup with the additions of Baez and the additions of Barnhart and the additions of Meadows. Barnhart counts, but Barnhart is he's not a good hitter. He's mainly there for defense. I look at this lineup and I say, hey, that's a good lineup. That's an above average league lineup. Here's the issue, and it's the sad truth and the sad reality. Teams that make deep runs in postseasons, teams that win the pennant, teams that win the World Series and compete for the World Series don't have above average lineups. They have nuclear bombs 1 through 9 in their lineup. You look at the Braves or the Dodgers or the White Sox, and I know people are down on this team, or the Yankees, the Blue Jays, who I think are going to win it all this year, the Red Sox. I know they don't have a lot of pitching, but that lineup absolutely slaps. Those teams have guys in the heart of their order who are capable of 900 to 1,000 OPS seasons. Guys who can hit 35 to 40 home runs. I mean, that kind of caliber of player. This team doesn't have that guy. Now, I think within the organization, they believe they will have those guys with Torkelson and Green. And if that's the case, guess what? Not only do you have them, but you have them for cheap. You don't have to dish out $200 million for a Spencer Torkelson or Riley Green, at least not yet, because you had them and drafted them and worked them up through your system. And as excited as I am to see how those guys develop, that doesn't mean anything to me in 2022. Now, don't get me wrong. I am as excited as anybody to watch him play, but I want to win now. And I would be stunned if either one of those guys, two rookies, are putting up, 900 OPSs and hitting 30 home runs a year in their rookie year. That's really rare. I look at the current construction of the lineup, and I see a lot of good major league players. Badu, Grossman, Jamer. Miggy, at least as an offensive player, is still average to above average scope, but I'm not seeing the fear bat quite yet. I've talked about it for years. I want a fear bat. The Twins have fear bats. The Yankees do. The White Sox do. Even the Guardians, while that offense I think is going to stink, just signed Jose Ramirez to an extension. So, I mean, he's an MVP caliber player, maybe the best third baseman in baseball. And as much as I've commended the organization for this offseason and the pieces they've added, I still will maintain that over the last 2 or 3 off seasons, they could have found that one extra player, whether it be dishing out a little bit more money to bring in Carlos Correa, whether it be 2 off seasons ago, dishing out the money to get a JT Realmuto, who is the best hitting catcher in baseball. Might not be for long, but he's still really, really good, an all-star caliber catcher who's elite behind the plate as well. Forget the future for a second because we could talk about it all day, but right now, for 2022, this team doesn't have a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They don't have a Juan Soto. They don't have an Aaron Judge. They don't have a guy that in the heart of that lineup is not only a monster to face, but one of those guys who makes everyone around him better, the way Cabrera did in his prime. Like, Victor Martinez had that amazing 2014 season, which he finished second for the MVP, and a big reason for it is because the guy ahead of him, nobody wanted to face. He had a 2-time MVP right next to him in the lineup that people would pitch around, and then you get to Vmart, who just had that monster year in 2014. We saw that with a lot of hitters, and we're seeing that with a lot of lineups in baseball. One great hitter can make a lineup and make the players around him substantially better because you just don't want to pitch to him. I don't believe they have that yet. Now, that does not mean that they're going to be some team that's going to be slumming it, finishing below 500. I still think that they have a better lineup than a majority of teams in the American League. But are they going to be capable of outslugging a team like the White Sox or Twins if the pitching falls apart and they get into a 10-8 game or an 11-9 game? I have concerns about that. And now we get to my prediction about how this season is going to unfold. I am nothing if not honest here. I think that this team will be competitive. I think this team will be good. I still see holes in the lineup. I see significant holes in the bullpen, mainly, almost entirely, due to injury. But beyond that, you look at the landscape of the American League and the current playoff expansion. There's now 6 teams in the American League that will be making it to the postseason going forward. And I don't believe the Tigers are better than the Blue Jays. In fact, I know they're not. I don't believe they're better than the White Sox, who I think are going to run away with the Central. I don't believe that they're better than the Mariners, Yankees, Red Sox, or Astros. But right after that, I think, comes Detroit. Somewhere just right above the middle of the American League. My belief is that this team will finish the year substantially stronger than how they started the year. And the expectation for 2023 will not only be make it to the playoffs, but win the division. I think this team will improve on their win total. I think they're going to be fun to watch. All the things we felt last year, even when they were losing, we're going to feel again this year. They have the best manager in baseball. And for people asking, I don't know what his contract situation is. Can we not focus on that for half a second? AJ Hinch is our manager. That's what I know. They have one of the best pitching coaches in baseball. They have a very good culture and a good clubhouse. Guys who want to play for their manager. They upgraded their roster. This pitching staff that we've talked about for years, not only are they here, I believe that in this season, several of them are going to emerge. Tarek Skubal is going to be so good, it's going to blow your mind. at some point. Torkelson and Green are going to be hitting back-to-back often in this lineup, and they're going to be wonderful, wonderful players, and I think both of them will compete and get Rookie of the Year votes. I believe at some point, much like last year, this team in the summer will get really hot, and we're going to look at the standings in late July, early August, and say, whoa, Tigers are only 3 to 5 games out of a playoff spot here. Let's compete for something. But I do think we'll start to notice a little bit of wear and tear near the end of the season. I don't think they're going to quite have the firepower to be able to hold off or jump ahead of some of the other teams in the American League. I think they'll miss the playoffs by several games, but it will make us very excited going forward about what the outlook of Tigers baseball is going to be, which is why when it's all said and done, the 2022 Detroit Tigers will finish with a record of 83-79. And I know some people may think that's a little bit low, but when you look at the current, way that the system is built, we're probably going to see an 86-win team make the playoffs this year, meaning that the Tigers will probably be in it near the last several weeks of the season. Hey, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope they win 90 games. I hope they win the division. I hope they compete with the White Sox. And that leads me into kind of my final segment here. I'm not good at taking compliments. I'm not good at talking myself up. Hey, man, just be yourself. Like, people like you. I don't do that. But I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I think one of the reasons why my content has grown the way it has is my objectivity. And I pride myself on that. I pride myself on the fact that I can be a fan, and I make no bones about the fact that I am a fan. I root for my teams. I love my teams. But I'm also more than willing to admit when one of my teams crap stinks. There is one day a year in which I make an exception, and that's opening day. Because I'm going to wake up on Friday morning, and I'm going to be absolutely convinced that the Detroit Tigers are going to win the World Series. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last. If Eduardo Rodriguez gives up a first pitch home run, we may be changing our tune a little bit. But you guys know where my heart is, and you know I'm a big softie, and I cry all the time, and I'm working on it because I'm really trying. I don't like doing that in front of people, but producer Matt's going to be there, and he's going to get it on video. This would be mean. I might have him do a cry meter when he uploads a vlog at some point to YouTube. But I'm going to be emotional on Friday. This is home again. These are my boys. This is where my heart is, and I so look forward to making those connections again. As much as I love putting out the content is not, it's not about me. It's about the team and the city and the fan base. We don't have to worry about draft picks anymore. We don't have to worry about prospects. The product is on the field now, and that's what excites me, and that's what should excite a lot of people. Embrace the expectations. Don't be afraid to be excited. If some moron comes up to you and says, the Tigers aren't going to be very good, well, then tell them to go fuck themselves in a nice way, because those people never had to watch Dawel Lugo play shortstop. This one is going to hit different, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Please don't rain. All right, well, that will do it for episode 8 of I'll Say This, and hopefully I'll see you at the ballpark on Friday. You can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014. While you're at it, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get those watch hours up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to a whole season's worth of podcasts. This is going to be fun, and even if it's not, it's still baseball. So thank you so much for watching and listening, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy opening day. Enjoy Tigers baseball. Peace and happiness, and go Tigers.